What about the animals' sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas by Krishna's mercy? कलेर दोष निधे राजन्नस्ते हे को महान गुण कीर्तनादेव कृष्ण से मुक्त संग param vrajet. Quote, My dear king, although Kali-yuga is full of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. It is that simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. Shrimad Bhagavatam 12.351.
I have no problem with the recommendation from leaders of the Vaishnava community to avoid eating meat. They offer the 4 regulative guidelines to refrain from meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and illicit sex. I understand the excuse, the pretense, if you will, is aligning with the desires of the object of worship. We should strive to sacrifice as much as possible, and within a valid sacrifice, yagya, there is typically an offering of food. People who eat what is left over from the yagya avoid sin, especially if the yagya is specifically in honor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are honoring prasadam, which is the Lord's mercy. Yagya shishtashinaha santo, muchyante sarv kilbishay, punjate te tu agham papa, ye pachantya atmakaranat. Quote, The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others, who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, verily eat only sin. Lord Krishna, Bhagavad-gita 3.13. As you might expect, the general public is initially not too enthusiastic when advised to avoid eating meat, especially if eating meat part of the prevailing culture or the traditions of the family into which they were born. They might angrily retort that there is no reason to protect such animals, that God gave man dominion over the lesser beings. Man has to eat after all. What is the difference in harming a plant and harming a mother like a cow who otherwise produces milk at the sight of her children? The critics also argue that the followers of the Vaishnava tradition are hypocrites because the very Vedas with which they supposedly align also recommend various sacrifices involving animals. There is even the Gomeda, which involves killing a cow. Why, then, all of a sudden, is there an outright ban on the practice? Furthermore, why so much attention paid to diet? Why should it matter the type of food that a person consumes? This is spiritual life, after all. This is for elevation of the spirit. Food is simply a way to survive. If I want to survive on animal flesh, that is my choice. That is my right. That is my business. Stay out of my business.
Ashwamedham gavalambham, sannyasam palpaitrikam, devrena sutotpattim, kalo pancha vivarjayet. Quote, In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden: the offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyasa, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Krishna Janma Kanda, 185-180. If such critics are so fond of referencing the Vedas, are they following all of the recommendations? If they mention Manu Simriti as their source for justification, do they obey all of the laws of Manu? Or do they simply pick and choose to meet their desires? Do they seriously equate a deliberate, intentional, controlled, and labor-intensive ritual such as a yagya with the modern-day schemes of slaughterhouses, which kill animals on a level of an assembly line factory? It is true that all of the recommendations put forward are part of genuine spiritual life. The aim is to elevate the spirit. The first exercise is to detach from the bodily mentality. That mentality is held together through agitation of the senses. In other words, real religion is for controlling the senses. Otherwise, there would be no purpose to mentioning rules and regulations for eating and interaction with the opposite sex. Marriage has no applicability in the animal community. Neither does a thorough review on the kinds of food to eat. The animals follow their instincts. The human beings are not animals. They have the power of comprehension, of deliberation, of rational thought. There is a Sanskrit word which describes control over the senses. Jitendriya refers to someone who is not swayed by desires ignited by seeing, touch, tasting, and the like. A Jitendriya person can sit down at a buffet table full of delicious food and avoid it, for instance. They will not be enticed when observing a particular vow, a vrata, that calls for fasting. We should aspire to be Jitendriya not for plaudits, for respect within society, for achieving distinction and honours, or for even belittling others. Jitendriya is the platform for happiness. That is the reason for the recommendation. There may be other factors involved in asking others to avoid eating meat. There is the implication with karma, which is fruitive activity. There is the loss of compassion, is mercilessly slaughtering innocent animals. But the ultimate objective is happiness. Even when consuming food within the approved categories, there is a call for restraint. Sri Krishna describes that the person in yoga does not go to extremes in eating and sleeping. They indulge as much as is necessary, no more and no less. Natya ashnatas tu yogo isti, nachaikantam anashnataha, nachati swapnashilasya, jagrato naiva charjun. Quote, there is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much, or eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough. Lord Krishna, Bhagavad-gita 6.16. There are many animal sacrifices described in the original Vedas, but the entire society is so degraded today that it is impossible to implement every single recommendation from the original culture. Such sacrifices involving the horse or the cow are generally forbidden in this fallen age of Kali. Even the many calls for intense austerity and rigorous adherence to prayer at the allotted times of the day are no longer followed. Whatever the specific diet we follow, we should strive for reaching the Jitendriya platform. The Supreme Lord is known as Govinda, among many other names, because he gives pleasure to the senses. Working to satisfy Govinda is the best way to control the senses and thereby reach a platform of happiness. The means for satisfying Govinda in the present age is to always say his names in a steady and consistent way through what is known as the Sankirtana Yagya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In closing, though not observed still, Yagya were animals to kill. Why on that point now stuck? By obvious hypocrisy not struck, Jitendriya the platform to reach, purpose behind practices to teach. Though degraded and fallen today, elevated through holy names to say.